The galaxy had always been a dangerous place, but today it felt colder than ever for the crew of the small human ship Ardent. From a distance, the massive alien fleet appeared like a dark storm moving across the stars. Hundreds of enemy ships, sleek and deadly, glinted under the light of distant suns. The humans had heard stories about these creatures, how they destroyed worlds without mercy, how no one had ever stood against them and lived. And yet, here was Ardent, humanity's weakest ship, drifting toward what seemed like certain death. Its hull was old, its engines barely capable of faster-than-light jumps, and the weapons were little more than relics of past conflicts. Even the crew knew their odds were low. Among them, whispers floated in the corridors. Why us? They'll crush us in seconds. But despite the fear, there was determination in their eyes. The captain, a woman named Alara, stood on the bridge, hands gripping the railing, staring at the endless black dotted with alien firepower. Her face was calm, but inside, her mind raced. Every strategy she had rehearsed seemed tiny against the scale of the threat before them. She knew the enemy would expect them to flee, to surrender, to fail. That thought made her smirk slightly. If they thought humanity would give up easily, they were about to be surprised. The aliens laughed, or at least that's how it seemed from their distant sensors. Their voices were mechanical, cold, mocking. Weak humans, one transmitted. Send them to extinction quickly. The crew felt the sting of the insult, but it also lit a spark of defiance. The youngest crew member, Jax, barely 17, clenched his fists. He had joined the fleet to prove himself, and now, staring at ships that could swallow Arden whole, he realized his moment had come. Every heart on the bridge beat faster as the enemy ships closed the distance. The humans were so small, almost invisible against the vastness of space, yet here they were, daring to move forward instead of hiding. Alara gave a single order: hold course. Prepare all systems. We fight smart, not hard. The words felt strange, even to her ears. Fighting smart, with weapons this weak, felt almost impossible. The crew scrambled, checking shields, charging outdated lasers, monitoring alien movements. Outside the viewport, the alien fleet was a terrifying spectacle, each ship larger than any human battleship, bristling with weapons that could obliterate cities in a single shot. And yet there was something about the aliens that the humans noticed too late: confidence. They believed victory was guaranteed. That arrogance was humanity's only chance. Hours seemed to stretch into minutes as the two forces approached. Every beep of the console, every flicker of light, heightened the tension. The ship's engineer, Mara, worked tirelessly to boost power wherever she could, whispering to herself as she recalibrated shields. "Come on, old girl. Don't fail me now." The crew felt the weight of history on their shoulders. Humanity had survived countless threats, but nothing like this. Outside, the alien ships began to form attack patterns, circling Ardent like predators closing in on a wounded animal. The humans could feel the pressure, the sheer inevitability of their doom. And then, just as fear reached its peak, Alara noticed something. A slight misalignment in the enemy formation, a tiny gap in the otherwise perfect shield of ships. It was a risk, but perhaps the only chance they had. The crew sensed a shift too. Hope, fragile but undeniable, crept into their hearts. For the first time, the words "weakest ship" did not feel like an insult. Maybe, just maybe, being underestimated was humanity's greatest weapon. Alarms blared as the alien fleet prepared to fire. The first shots would come any second, tearing through the void toward them. The humans braced, each heartbeat echoing the thought that this could be their last moment. Yet in the tension, a quiet determination settled over the bridge. They would not run. They would not beg for mercy. They were small, they were weak, but they were human, and humans never gave up easily. As the first beams of alien energy cut through space, the Ardent shuddered, shields flickering, but the crew remained steadfast. The smallest ship in the galaxy, the weakest by every measure, had a heart stronger than any of its enemies could imagine. And deep in the minds of the alien commanders, doubt began to creep. Perhaps this battle would not be as simple as they had imagined. Humanity's weakest ship was about to show what it could do, and one shot, one perfectly timed strike, would change everything. The small ship Ardent drifted closer to the alien fleet, its engines humming nervously like a frightened animal. Inside, the crew moved with purpose, each member aware that their lives depended not on strength, but on skill and quick thinking. Captain Alara paced the bridge, her eyes scanning every sensor readout, every flicker of alien movement. She had chosen this crew not for size or experience, but for courage and creativity. First, there was Jax, the youngest member, whose fingers flew over the controls as though he were born to pilot the tiny vessel. He had a way of sensing gaps in enemy formations, spotting weaknesses where others saw only overwhelming force. Mara, the engineer, was a wizard with the ship's aging systems. To anyone else, Ardent would have been a failure waiting to happen, but in her hands, every broken panel and worn circuit became a tool of survival. Then there was Kale, the weapons officer, quiet and precise, whose eyes never left the viewport, calculating angles and trajectories faster than anyone could speak. The crew worked like a single mind, a small but deadly organism in the vast emptiness of space. Outside, the alien fleet continued its slow, methodical advance, confident that the humans would not last more than minutes. Their chatter crackled over comms, full of arrogance and mockery. "Prepare to be erased," one voice said. The crew of Ardent ignored the taunts. Words from the enemy had no power here. Only action mattered. Alara gave a calm order. "Run diagnostics. Check every weapon, every system. Find a weakness, any weakness. We fight smart, we fight together." Her words settled over the crew like a shield, steadying them. Jax leaned forward, his eyes scanning the alien formations. He noticed patterns in the enemy's movements that even the sensors did not immediately reveal. "Captain," he said, voice tight with excitement, "they repeat their attacks in cycles. If we time it right, we can slip through the next wave." Alara nodded. Timing was everything. Mara's fingers flew over the controls, rerouting power to shields and engines in ways that no manual would explain. Sparks flew, consoles blinked, and yet, somehow, the systems hummed with renewed life. Kale adjusted the targeting arrays, using angles that would make even seasoned officers doubt their accuracy. They were small, yes, but cunning. As the alien ships closed in, tension on the bridge reached a tangible peak. Every beep and flicker became a heartbeat, every movement in the void a reminder that death was only seconds away. The crew had no illusions about the danger, yet fear did not dominate them. Instead, determination hardened into resolve. Alara walked to the viewport, her gaze piercing the alien fleet. They were massive, terrifying, but arrogance often hides weakness. She had seen it before. Her mind raced through possibilities. "We cannot win by strength. We win by trick," she murmured. The crew caught the subtle shift in her voice, the hint of hope that came from seeing opportunity in impossibility. Each crew member prepared for their role. Jax would maneuver the ship through impossible gaps. Mara would keep the systems running against all odds, and Kale would strike when the moment presented itself. Alara herself would make the decisions that would either save them all or doom them. Minutes stretched into long moments of silence as the aliens drew near. The crew shared a glance, unspoken understanding passing between them. They were small, underestimated, and that made them dangerous. The first shots from the enemy cut through the darkness, missing by mere meters. The Ardent shuddered, but it did not falter. Each hit reminded the crew of what was at stake. Yet every second also confirmed their plan. Timing, precision, and courage were their weapons. Jax's hands danced across the controls, slipping the ship through narrow paths between laser fire. Mara whispered calculations to herself, rerouting energy just in time to prevent a shield collapse. Kale focused, ready to fire the old human weapons in ways the aliens would not anticipate. And through it all, Alara's calm voice guided them. "Now," she said, eyes sharp. The crew felt a spark of hope. The alien fleet might be massive, but it was not perfect. Patterns existed, and humans were masters of adaptation. The smallest ship, thought to be weakest, now moved with purpose, every motion precise, every decision critical. As they dodged the incoming fire, a flicker on the sensors caught Alera's attention. A minor gap in the alien formation, almost invisible, but enough for them to exploit. She held her breath. This was their chance. The crew tightened, focusing all their energy, all their skill, all their courage. For the first time, the mockery of the alien commanders felt hollow. The humans had one advantage no machine could predict: cleverness. And cleverness, combined with courage, could do what sheer power could not. The bridge hummed with energy, tension, and anticipation. Every crew member knew that the next moments could decide the fate of humanity. And somewhere deep in the dark void, the aliens sensed a shift, a small but dangerous presence that refused to bow. The humans were small. Yes, the ship was weak, but in these minutes, it felt unstoppable. Their chance had arrived, and they would take it, no matter the cost. One small ship, 7 crew members, and a spark of human ingenuity ready to change everything. The battle had only just begun, but already, hope burned brighter than the enemy fire. The first shots from the alien fleet tore through the darkness of space like deadly streaks of light, each one a reminder of the danger surrounding the tiny human ship, Ardent. The bridge shook as the crew braced themselves, hearts pounding. Alarms blared and warning lights flickered across consoles, but the humans moved with precision. Jax's fingers flew across the controls, twisting and turning the ship in impossible arcs, dodging beams that would have shredded any larger vessel. Mara's hands were a blur, rerouting power to shields and engines, keeping the ship alive against the overwhelming assault. Kale tracked the enemy relentlessly, calculating angles to return fire with the old, battered weapons that no one believed could matter. The alien fleet moved with terrifying coordination, yet even they could not anticipate the humans' improvisation. Alera barked orders, her voice calm but firm. Hold formation. Focus fire on the smaller frigates. Timing is everything. Don't waste a shot. The crew obeyed, working as a single organism, each action precise and deliberate. Outside, the alien ships seemed unstoppable, their massive hulls bristling with weapons, but the humans spotted patterns. Repeated cycles of attack, brief pauses between volleys, a chance to slip through the chaos. Jax maneuvered Ardent into one of those gaps, weaving through streams of energy that could have vaporized them instantly. The crew held their breath with every narrow escape. Sparks flew from the console as Mara strained the ship's aging systems to their limits. "We're pushing too hard," she muttered under her breath, sweat on her forehead. "We can't keep this up forever." Alera nodded, understanding the strain, but she also knew that this was their moment. Humans had survived worse odds, and sometimes desperation made genius. Kale's targeting system locked onto a small alien frigate, a vessel overlooked by the enemy because it seemed too insignificant to matter. "Now," Alera whispered. Kale fired, and the old laser bolt hit the alien ship with perfect accuracy, tearing a hole in its hull. The crew let out a quiet cheer, barely audible over the alarms. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The alien fleet roared in response, focusing more ships on the Ardent. The humans felt the pressure tighten around them, yet they did not falter. Every shot they fired, every evasive maneuver, every flicker of strategy was calculated. They were weak in size and firepower, but their minds moved faster than the enemy's machinery. Jax darted through the battlefield, the ship slipping through dangerous channels like water flowing around rocks. Mara kept the systems humming despite the strain, her hands moving faster than thought, rerouting power with skill born of years of necessity. Kale's eyes never left the enemy, predicting movement, returning fire with calm precision. And Alera watched it all, her mind racing ahead, planning the next step in a game where one mistake meant annihilation. The alien ships began to notice the humans' cleverness. Confusion rippled through their formation, subtle but real. A small, weak ship. How could it evade and counter so effectively? The humans had become more than their size and firepower. They had become unpredictable, a thorn in the enemy's side. Alarms flared again as a beam nearly struck the ship. Ardent shuddered violently, and the crew clung to consoles, faces tense. They had narrowly escaped, but the danger was growing. Alara's mind raced. They could not win by firepower alone. They needed a distraction, something to buy time and create an opening. Jax, we've toured the gap near the frigate cluster. Mara, boost shields at maximum. Kale, aim for the engines of that lead cruiser. Timing is everything, she ordered. The humans moved as one. Jax twisted the ship, slipping through tight spaces, dodging streams of energy. Mara poured every ounce of power into the shields, sparks flying, but systems holding. Kale fired, lasers hitting their target, slowing the enemy's advance. For a brief moment, the humans felt control in a battle that had seemed hopeless. Outside, the alien commanders shouted commands, trying to adapt, but the humans were always one step ahead. Each small victory brought confidence. They realized that the so-called weakest ship might have the greatest advantage. No one expected them to fight like this. The alien fleet adjusted, firing in denser patterns, trying to overwhelm the tiny vessel. The Ardent shook under the assault, but the crew pressed on. They were determined, united, clever, and brave. Every second stretched the limits of endurance. And then came a moment of near silence amidst the chaos. A slight miscalculation by the alien fleet created a narrow opening. Alara's eyes gleamed. This was the chance they had been waiting for. She gave a single word. Now. Jax twisted the ship into position. Mara stabilized the systems. Kale fired the precise shot that could turn the tide. Outside, the alien ships reeled. One frigate destroyed. Several more forced off course. The humans had struck first, gaining the upper hand for the first time in the battle. The crew gasped, relief and adrenaline mixing in their veins. But there was no time to celebrate. The battle raged on, and the enemy would soon adapt. Yet in that moment, the Ardent crew knew something important. Being underestimated could be a weapon, and human courage, intelligence, and teamwork were stronger than any alien fleet believed. The attack had begun, and the smallest ship in the galaxy had already made its mark. Humanity's weakest vessel was proving that even against impossible odds, cleverness and courage could shine brighter than the mightiest weapons. The small ship Ardent floated in the void, battered but alive, its hull scarred by alien fire. The first skirmish had shown the crew that survival was possible, but victory required more than evasive maneuvers and lucky shots. Captain Alara stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the alien fleet that stretched endlessly across the darkness, massive and confident. She knew the humans could not win by brute force. Their weapons were too weak, their shields too fragile, and their numbers laughable compared to the enemy. What they had, however, was intelligence, courage, and the element of surprise. She turned to her crew, her voice calm but sharp. We cannot fight them the way they expect. We need a plan that uses their arrogance against them. Something bold, something precise. Jax leaned forward over the controls, curiosity and determination in his eyes. Captain, we've already seen gaps in their formation. If we time it right, we could slip through and hit the lead cruiser's engines directly. It might disrupt their fleet. Mara nodded, wiping sweat from her brow. The systems can handle a focused strike, but only if we reroute power to the shields and engines at the same time. It's risky. One mistake, and we're finished. Kale adjusted his targeting arrays, fingers tapping in rapid sequence. We can't fire randomly. Every shot has to count. One precise hit could cascade through their formation if we aim at the right points. Alara's mind raced. They were small, underestimated, and that could be their advantage. The enemy fleet expected them to be weak, slow, and predictable. Instead, they would be clever, unpredictable, and fast. We strike at the heart of their formation, she said. Jax, you maneuver. Mara, keep the ship alive no matter what. Kale, aim for the engines of the lead cruiser and any weak points we can exploit. Timing is everything. The crew absorbed the orders, each understanding the stakes. They had prepared for survival, but now they were preparing for an audacious attack that could change the course of the battle. Outside the viewport, the alien ships loomed, their weapons glowing like distant suns. They were confident, moving in tight formation, expecting an easy victory. But confidence can blind even the strongest. The humans had studied their patterns, observed every movement, and found the rhythm in the chaos. This rhythm would be their guide, their way to slip through defenses unnoticed. Alara turned her attention to the sensors, tracking every ship, every pulse of energy. She calculated the timing needed for Jax to weave through the gaps, for Mara to manage the overload on the shields, and for Kale to fire at the precise moment. Each variable was crucial. One miscalculation could mean destruction. The bridge was tense, yet focused. Sweat glistened on brows. Hands hovered over controls, and breaths were shallow as the crew prepared for the critical maneuver. The plan was daring, almost reckless, but it was the only chance they had. "We make our move in 3 cycles," Alara said, voice steady. "Not sooner, not later. Every second matters." Jax gripped the controls, feeling the ship respond like a living thing. He could sense the timing, the gaps, the flow of the battle. This was more than piloting. It was a dance between life and death. Mara worked behind the panels, redirecting energy from non-essential systems, watching the old engines strain under the pressure. Sparks flew, consoles blinked wildly, but she pushed the ship's systems beyond their limits. "We're ready," she said, eyes locking with Alaris. Kale checked his targeting one final time, calculating angles with precision. "I can hit the lead cruiser if we line up correctly. The rest of the fleet will follow in chaos." Alara's eyes narrowed. This was it. Humanity's weakest ship was about to take the boldest step in its history. Every crew member knew what was at stake. Outside, the alien fleet continued their advance, completely unaware of the plan forming within the tiny human ship. The moment approached like a rising tide, inevitable and unstoppable. "Hold steady," Alara whispered, her voice carrying calm authority. The first cycle began. Jax guided Ardent toward the opening, moving with skill and precision. Mara monitored shields, diverting every ounce of power to keep the ship from being torn apart. Kale waited, weapons ready, calculating the perfect moment to fire. Time seemed to stretch, each second heavy with tension. The humans were tiny, vulnerable, yet they moved with courage and intelligence that the aliens could not predict. Alara's heart pounded, but her mind was clear. This was more than survival. This was a test of humanity's ingenuity. Every calculation, every maneuver, every pulse of energy was part of a single, daring plan that could turn the tide of battle. And if it succeeded, the galaxy would remember that even the weakest ship in the hands of humans could achieve the impossible. The plan was in motion, precise and daring. The crew united in courage and focus. The aliens would soon discover that underestimating humanity was their first mistake. The Ardent was no longer just a weak ship. It was a weapon of cunning and resolve, ready to strike when the moment came. The small ship Ardent moved like a shadow among the stars, weaving through the alien fleet with skill and precision that no one expected. The first cycles had gone as planned, and now the crew knew their moment was close. Captain Alara's eyes never left the viewport, scanning the enemy's ships, waiting for the exact gap, the exact angle, the perfect moment to strike. Jax's hands were steady on the controls, guiding the tiny ship through narrow channels of fire, dodging beams that could have shredded it in an instant. Every movement was calculated, each second a test of nerves. Mara's hands flew over the panels, diverting power to shields and engines, keeping the aging vessel alive against attacks that would have destroyed any larger ship. Kale's fingers hovered over the firing controls, waiting for the moment when the lasers would count, when one shot could change the course of the battle. Silence settled over the bridge, heavy with tension, broken only by the hum of the ship and the occasional alarm. The alien fleet pressed closer, their weapons aimed and ready, their confidence unshaken. They still did not see the threat hidden in the smallest, weakest ship in the galaxy. Alara took a deep breath and whispered, "Now." The command, though soft, carried the weight of the entire crew's hopes. Jax adjusted the ship's trajectory, slipping into the narrowest gap between two massive cruisers. The shields flared as beams grazed the hull, sparks flying, but the Ardent held its course. Mara's hands moved faster than thought, stabilizing power flows, rerouting energy in ways the ship was not designed to handle. Kale's finger pressed the firing button, and the old human laser shot leapt from the gun with deadly precision. It struck the lead alien cruiser's engine, a perfect hit that sent a shockwave through the ship. Sparks erupted, alarms blared, and the vessel shuddered violently. The alien crew scrambled in panic, firing at random, trying to regain control. The effect on the fleet was immediate. Ships around the lead cruiser collided and shifted out of formation, caught off guard by the sudden chaos. The humans held their breath as they watched the ripple of confusion spread. It was their first real victory, small but critical. The alien commanders cursed and barked orders, trying to reorganize, but the humans were already moving. Jax twisted the Ardent through another narrow channel, keeping the ship alive while dodging multiple beams. Mara's hands never stopped, rerouting power and monitoring systems, whispering to herself as she worked. "Come on, don't fail me now." Kale aimed again, targeting weak points revealed by the chaos, each shot precise and effective. Alara's mind raced, calculating the next move, knowing the aliens would adapt quickly. The key was to maintain the surprise and exploit every tiny advantage. The alien fleet was massive, but their arrogance blinded them to the danger. They expected humans to flee or surrender, not to strike with precision and cunning. Each hit by the Ardent showed them that even the smallest, weakest vessel could inflict devastating damage if used wisely. The bridge was alive with tension, every crew member aware that a single mistake could be fatal. Yet, the humans were calm in their focus, trusting each other, trusting their plan, trusting their skill. Sparks flew from the controls as systems strained, shields flickered under repeated fire, but the Ardent held together. Jax maneuvered the ship closer to the disrupted formation, dodging debris and blasts. The crew felt adrenaline and fear mingling with determination. Every shot fired by Kale was perfect, every movement of the ship deliberate. The aliens had underestimated them, and that underestimation became a weapon for humanity. As the first strike concluded, the human ship had done what no one thought possible. One small laser bolt, one daring maneuver, had shattered the rhythm of the alien fleet, sending confusion and fear rippling through their ranks. The crew allowed themselves a brief moment to exhale, though they knew the battle was far from over. Outside, the enemy ships scrambled, adjusting, regrouping, trying to bring order to the chaos the humans had created. But the Ardent had already taken the initiative. Alara's voice broke the silence, calm but commanding. "Prepare for the next wave. We keep the pressure. We stay unpredictable. We strike again when the opportunity comes." The crew nodded, returning to their stations, eyes sharp, hands steady. They had proven that size and firepower were not the only measures of strength. Cleverness, courage, and teamwork had turned the tide in their favor, at least for now. The first strike had succeeded, and the smallest, weakest ship in the galaxy had become a symbol of hope, a reminder that humans could defy expectation and survive even in the face of overwhelming odds. The battle was far from over, but the crew of the Ardent had shown that even the weakest could make a difference, and that difference might be all humanity had to survive the storm that still loomed ahead. The first strike had thrown the alien fleet into chaos, but the battle was far from over. The small human ship Ardent drifted through the scattered enemy formation, its hull battered, systems straining, but the crew's resolve stronger than ever. Outside, massive alien ships roared with renewed aggression, firing beams and missiles in every direction. Sparks danced across the ship's interior as consoles blinked warnings and alarms screamed through the bridge. Captain Alera's eyes were sharp, scanning every angle, every movement, anticipating the next threat. "Hold steady," she ordered, voice calm over the roar of activity. "We've made them scramble, but they'll adapt quickly. Stay focused. Timing is everything." Jax gripped the controls tightly, twisting and turning the Ardent through tight channels of debris and energy fire. Each movement was precise, calculated to avoid the enemy's new assault patterns. Mara's hands flew over the panels, diverting power from non-essential systems to shields and engines, sparks flying as circuits overloaded and stabilized. Kale tracked every hostile ship, targeting weak points exposed in the enemy's panic. The human crew had gained an advantage, but the alien commanders were ruthless. They began to reorganize, concentrating fire on the small ship, determined to destroy the one that had humiliated them. Beams of energy cut through the void, some grazing the Ardent's hull, sending shudders across the bridge. The tension was palpable, each crew member's heartbeat echoing the danger around them. "Incoming fire!" shouted Jax as a massive energy beam sliced past the viewport. The shields flared, absorbing the impact, but the strain was evident. Mara's fingers flew over the controls, rerouting power instantly. "We can't hold this forever," she warned, voice tense. "We need a distraction." Alera's mind raced. They had gained a first victory, but the aliens were learning, adapting, and now bringing more firepower to bear. She knew that survival depended on exploiting the chaos, using the enemy's arrogance and overconfidence against them. "Kale, focus on the capital cruiser at the center. If we can disable it, the rest of the fleet will lose coordination," she commanded. Kale's eyes narrowed as he calculated angles and timing. "Understood, but it won't be easy. Their shields are stronger than the others, and they'll target us immediately." Jax twisted the ship, dodging beams and flying debris as Mara stabilized systems pushed to the limit. Sweat gleamed on her forehead, but her hands were steady, every rerouted current precise. Outside, the alien fleet adjusted, forming a tighter formation around the capital cruiser. They had learned from the first strike and were determined to correct their mistakes. Yet even in their aggression, the humans spotted openings. Arcs of unprotected hulls, gaps in patrol routes, patterns of overconfidence. These small weaknesses were the humans' chance. Alera felt a spark of hope. Even the smallest advantage could become decisive if used correctly. "We need to lure them slightly apart," she whispered to herself, then louder to the crew. "Jax, bait the smaller cruisers toward the edge of the formation. Kale, prepare to strike when the center is exposed. Mara, keep us alive." Jax adjusted course, feinting toward the smaller ships, drawing fire away from the lead vessel. Lasers and energy beams chased the Ardent, but the tiny ship danced through them with agility no larger vessel could match. Mara's hands worked furiously, keeping shields and engines stable under extreme stress. Kale waited patiently, calculating the perfect moment to fire. The alien fleet grew frustrated, their coordinated attack breaking into pockets of confusion. The humans had turned the chaos into a tool, their skill and timing transforming weakness into power. And then, just as the humans prepared to strike the capital cruiser, a new threat appeared. A massive, previously hidden alien dreadnought emerged from the shadows, larger and deadlier than any ship they had faced. Its weapons glowed ominously, its hull bristling with energy that could obliterate the Ardent instantly. The bridge shook as sensors screamed warnings. "A dreadnought!" shouted Jax, voice tight with fear. Mara's fingers flew, rerouting every system to survival mode. Kale's hands hovered over the firing controls, calculating angles that might reach the seemingly invulnerable ship. Alera's mind raced. The battle had become more dangerous than they anticipated, but fear did not control her. "We adapt," she said firmly. "This is what humans do. Stay sharp. Trust your skill. We fight smart, not hard." The crew nodded, steeling themselves. Every second now counted. The dreadnought advanced, firing beams that carved paths through space, each one threatening to tear the Ardent apart. Yet the humans moved with purpose, exploiting every small gap, dodging, weaving, and striking with precise fire where possible. Sparks flew across the bridge, alarms shrieked, but the crew's coordination was flawless. The humans had survived the first wave, struck decisively, and now faced a new and terrifying threat. Yet in their courage and ingenuity, they found opportunity. One small ship, underestimated and weak in size, had proven capable of outsmarting a vast fleet. Now, even against a dreadnought, the crew of the Ardent would not surrender. The battle raged on, more dangerous than ever, but humanity's smallest ship was alive, defiant, and ready to fight against impossible odds. The dreadnought loomed like a black mountain in space, its massive weapons glowing with deadly intent. The Ardent floated before it, battered and small, yet the crew's resolve was stronger than ever. Captain Alara stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the enemy, mind calculating every possible move. "We end this now," she said, voice calm but firm. "Jax, weave through the fire as close as possible. Mara, keep the shields up no matter what. Kale, aim for the power core. One shot, one chance." Jax's hands flew over the controls, twisting the tiny ship through a deadly storm of energy beams and missiles. Sparks flew across consoles as the shields flickered, absorbing blasts that could have destroyed a battleship. Mara worked frantically, rerouting power, stabilizing the engines, whispering to herself as circuits overloaded and recovered. Kale's fingers hovered over the firing controls, calculating angles, timing, and distance with perfect precision. Every second was critical. The dreadnought's weapons fired in arcs meant to trap the Ardent, but the small human ship moved unpredictably, slipping through gaps and shadows the enemy had never considered. Outside, alien ships scrambled, unable to react to the tiny vessel's daring maneuvers. Alara's heart pounded, but her mind was clear. She could see the moment approaching, the opening where all their risk and courage could pay off. Now she commanded, "Kale, fire the concentrated shot." The laser bolt leapt from the weapon, striking the dreadnought's power core with blinding precision. The impact reverberated through space. Alarms screamed across the enemy ship as sparks, explosions, and fire tore through its interior. The dreadnought shuddered violently, massive engines stalling, systems failing. Jax twisted the Ardent away just in time, narrowly avoiding the shockwave. Mara let out a quiet cheer, relief mingling with the adrenaline that had kept her going. The smaller alien ships faltered, thrown into disarray by the destruction of their leader. Without coordination, their attacks became clumsy and disorganized. The humans had done the impossible. They had struck at the heart of the enemy fleet, and it had shaken the massive armada to its core. The bridge was alive with tension and excitement. Alara's eyes gleamed with pride and focus. "Press the advantage," she said. "We're not done yet. Every shot counts." Kale fired on vulnerable engines and weapon arrays of the surrounding alien ships, exploiting the confusion. Jax maneuvered the Ardent through dangerous channels, dodging debris and fire with skill and precision. Mara kept the systems running against all odds, her hands moving faster than thought. The alien fleet continued to fire, but their attacks were scattered, uncoordinated, and increasingly desperate. Sparks and small explosions shook the Ardent, but the crew pressed on. Each successful hit brought hope and momentum. The smallest, weakest ship in the galaxy had become the most dangerous, unpredictable force in the battlefield. The aliens had underestimated humanity's courage, creativity, and teamwork, and that mistake was their undoing. Minutes stretched like hours as the humans executed precise maneuvers, striking and evading with skill and timing that seemed impossible. The dreadnought groaned, systems failing, weapons offline. One by one, the surrounding cruisers were forced back or destroyed as the human crew exploited their weaknesses. Finally, the alien fleet's formation collapsed, leaving scattered ships drifting helplessly in space. Silence fell for a moment, broken only by the hum of the Ardent's engines. The crew looked at one another, exhausted but triumphant. Alara allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had survived, not through overwhelming power, but through intelligence, courage, and teamwork. The tiny ship that everyone had mocked had changed everything with one decisive strike. Outside, the stars glimmered calmly, indifferent to the chaos that had just unfolded. The aliens, beaten and shocked, retreated into the darkness, leaving humanity's fleet and the Ardent to claim victory. The crew cheered softly, relief and pride mingling in their voices. Jax leaned back, exhausted but smiling, knowing they had done what no one thought possible. Mara wiped sweat from her brow, marveling at the systems that had survived the impossible strain. Kale allowed himself a brief nod of satisfaction, knowing his aim had made the difference. Alara stood silently for a moment, gazing out at the retreating enemy. She knew this victory was only the beginning. Humanity had proven that even the smallest, weakest vessel could strike fear into the mightiest armada when guided by courage and intelligence. The Ardent floated among the stars, battered but unbeaten, a symbol of what humans could achieve. Across the galaxy, the lesson was clear: underestimate humanity at your peril. The crew had faced impossible odds, survived, and triumphed through determination, cleverness, and teamwork. The stars would remember the smallest ship with the biggest heart, the Ardent, and the humans who had dared to fight when all seemed lost. Captain Alara finally allowed herself to relax slightly, turning to her crew. "We did it," she said simply. The crew smiled, exhausted but proud. They had faced fear, chaos, and impossible odds, and had emerged victorious. Humanity had won, not by strength alone, but by the brilliance, courage, and unity of its people. The galaxy would never forget the day the weakest ship fired once and changed everything.